for Figaro had every potential of being a brilliant rom-com. But nothing makes me more sad to see a high-quality production rom-com with such low-quality results. Falling for Figaro almost had every component needed to make this exquisite feel-good movie, but essentially lacked every essential component to make it a good movie. And in this video, I'll explain why. Now, don't get me wrong, I know it's a rom-com. I love rom-coms. They are not only my guilty pleasure, but over lockdown I tried to watch the top 250 best rom-coms of all time. I know a massive majority of them are not going to be held up against Schindler's List or anything like that, but they're still movies, and to make a good movie, even a bad good movie, has to have certain components and a level of quality, especially when it comes to script writing and character development that allows you to feel something about the story that's going on. Now, the first half of this video is going to be spoiler free, so you can watch it safely knowing that I am ruining nothing for you, but there will be spoilers, but I will warn you when they are about to come up. So carry on watching in safety, my friends. Falling for Figaro, which was directed by Ben Lewin, had everything it needed. A unique enough concept for a rom-com, a very strong cast of actors, like Danielle McDonald from Dumpling, the legend that is Joanna Lumley, Gary Lewis, who I love in Billy Elliot in Gangs of New York, high quality production, which doesn't necessarily mean if it's a good film or bad film. If it has low quality production, you can still make a very good film with low budgets and low quality, but it definitely gives you that more finished, polished look that allows you to enjoy and immerse yourself more. And considering that this film is about opera, it had incredible talent. Vocal pipes of Hugh Skinner, which I still cannot confirm or deny whether it was actually his singing in the film, but I know he can sing, so I'm guessing it was, but all the other people as well, just beautiful. It had the makings of a timeless story of self-discovery and finding love along the way. However, it was like the directors and the screenwriters all sat down and said, what makes a good rom-com? And thought of every trope and every component that you'd ever see in any film together combined and threw them into one film without actually thinking how to tell a story effectively. One of my biggest problems with this particular film, that although in most films now we much more enjoy a more flawed protagonist, even an anti-hero, you still have to have qualities about that character that you can relate to or root for. And in this film, every single character had nada, nothing, no redeemable characteristics, no personality traits that you could relate to, enjoy, root for, and you end up watching this over 2-hour film. I think it's like 1 hour and 44 minutes, and you're just watching it. You're not rooting for anyone, you're not hoping for anything particular to happen, you are just watching it with zero investment. 1 hour and 44 minutes is too long for you to not care about any character by the end of it. I also don't mind tropes in storytelling. They exist for a reason. They're formulas in storytelling that help propel the story or narrative, and they give you a sense of nostalgia while watching a film you've never seen before. However, really, I would say there should be no more than 3 tropes. When you actually research how many tropes there are a ridiculous amount of tropes. There are tropes people watch that are tropes and you may not even realize they're tropes. Can I say tropes anymore? But this film, it had so many. It had too many. I started listing them and I was going to do a big list, but I got bored and angry thinking about this film in that way. But there are a lot. And I will talk about them more specifically in the spoiler section, but there are a lot. So what are my particular thoughts on the movie besides that it lacked this The thing is, the film isn't bad as a whole. There was stuff I genuinely liked about it. The phenomenal talent of the opera singers just blew me away and gave me goosebumps every time. The premise of the story had so much fun. I love films that take especially a woman going through a quarter midlife crisis, because I can't relate to that at all. And they put her in a different environment where she has to chase her dreams, face a hurdle, overcome a fear. I'm all about that. I also love the cliched, really cheesy rom-com aspect of any movie. I root for that. I love love. I love seeing that, even if it is unrealistic and ridiculous. But it has to make sense. I love the fact they used a plus size actress to be the protagonist, and not once throughout the entire film do they mention her weight. Usually, especially in rom-coms or female empowered films, anyone who is plus size is either the sidekick, the comic relief, or being plus size is their hurdle. In this film, that's not a hurdle. You don't actually even know whether she cares that she's plus size or not. She might be entirely comfortable in her body. It's never brought up because that's not the issue. I liked that. For such a trope-filled film, that was very anti-trope. The actors and the casting is something I really liked. They had a really strong cast. These are all very established actors that have been in stuff that I have really enjoyed in the past. However, I hated every single character they played with a passion. Megan Jeffrey Bishop, played by Joanna Lumley, was probably the better one of the characters I disliked. She plays this retired diva who obviously has some sort of chip on her shoulder about being a retired diva. In the film, some people say she never made it. She says she did make it, but either way, she's definitely got a Sunset Boulevard-esque chip on her shoulder where she can't let go of the fame and fortune she once had. It's a great character story. It has so much depth potential, and bitted mentors like that actually have that little soft heart on the inside. There's so much you can play with, there's so much you can do, and Joanna Lumley does do the bullying role of this well, but it starts to fall flat towards the end, which I'll talk about when I go over the plot summary. The only character I really liked and seemed to have some depth, and I would usually say, oh, it's a sign of his acting, which is incredible, but once again I said this cast was very strong. I think it's more that he was just in the show the least, so he couldn't mess up the most, if that makes sense. But the character was Ramsay McFadden, and that was the landlord, and I thought he was used as the voice of reason along the narrative. It's actually a trope called the MacGuffin, where you have a character that kind of propels the narrative that's needed to propel the narrative, but they actually have no say in the narrative. Like, if he was no longer in the story, the rest of the plot actually wouldn't change, but he's the one who will go and talk to Joanna Lumley, Megan, and say, oh, you're just bitter because you weren't successful. And she'd go, I am successful. Or he'd go, you're being too hard on the kids, be nicer. Like, he obviously rents into Millie, but really he has no weight on the story, but I liked him. And there were so many moments between these characters where it just reminded me of Eddie Izzard's stand-up, where she's talking about British films and when you eat popcorn, and she says, like, in American films it's just bah 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 and you're like shoving the popcorn into your mouth, but then in British films everyone just awkwardly walks into a room and goes, oh, you were here, and then someone in the room goes, oh, yes. And the person who walked into the room goes, oh, okay, I'll go. You are just sitting there waiting for something to happen and nothing ever does because it's just awkward. That was this film. So let's talk about the plot and the breakdown of the movie. Basically, this story is about a girl called Millie who has a very successful job in London, has a very nice boyfriend who she lives with, and they have a very good life together. It pretty much sets off straight away, which I liked, that she's not happy, she's quitting her job and she wants to be an opera singer, so she's going to Joanna Lumley, who is Megan, and asking Megan to train her up for a competition in a year's time to become an opera singer. So she packs up her stuff, goes up to Scotland, and the only other person being tutored by Megan is a guy called Max, and he is not happy about this arrangement whatsoever. And that's a big chunk of the movie. Like, that's 40 minutes of spoiler free before I go into a little bit more detail. But she gets there and she starts singing, and Megan's not very nice to her, and neither is Max, and yeah. I mean, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I'm being a bit harsh now. It's fine. I probably enjoyed the first 40 minutes of this film the most. It makes sense. I don't have to like Millie. You don't have to like every main character. It was a little rushed. I didn't like how she spoke to her boyfriend. It's fine. It is fine. It's actually more where I start talking about spoilers after this bit, where I probably got more and more annoyed, because this is where the development should happen. This is where the real struggles and hurdles. There wasn't a single montage. There wasn't a montage. They're my favourite bits in the film, and it's where it isn't, unfortunately. That's where it should be, and it's where it's not. So from now on in this video, the things I start talking about are a lot more spoiler filled, so be warned. Max and Millie haven't really got on. They've had this British awkwardness about them, even though Millie is American and Max is Scottish. Oh, well, he's still British. There's an awkwardness about them. Max doesn't want anything to do with her. Millie just getting on with everything. And then all of a sudden, Max starts giving Millie some books and hints and tips and salt water to help her for no reason. 3 months have passed, her singing is improving, and they are entered into a qualifying competition for the end of the year competition. Max says he wants to help Millie because he doesn't want Millie to embarrass Megan. Why do all the three main characters begin with M? It's so... Max says, come round to mine, I'm going to help you sing. Max puts his hand on her chest and he's like, there's no vibrations, feel mine. So he puts her hand on his chest, he starts singing, there's obvious vibrations, and Millie looks like she's about to orgasm. It's so weird. There's that kind of face, and there's a lot in this film where they try to convey story and speech and emotion through the face, but it's just all orgasmic. It's so weird. Then comes the qualifier. They both go. Millie goes to run away. Max chases after her, and instead of calming her down when she goes, you're setting me up to fail, you're setting me up to embarrass me, instead of being like, oh, but you're amazing, please stay, he calls her a spoiled brat and she can do what she wants. I actually liked that. I wasn't expecting that to happen. I liked that. It's at this point where I am actually starting to like Max. I don't really like how he interacts with Millie in any sense of the word, and none of it makes sense, but I like Max on his own. And I, at this point, started to decide he's the main character in this story for me, not Millie. Max auditions, he does okay. Millie auditions, she does amazing. And Max does the weird orgasmic face that everyone keeps pulling in this film, and I don't like it. There's a newspaper review of both performances, and it's singing Millie's praises. It then cuts to her boyfriend, reading it out to all his work colleagues, boasting, drinking champagne and celebrating, and she's just calling him her friend behind his back because she's such a nice person. Millie and Max are instructed to do a duet because Megan thinks that Max needs to have more emotion in his face and Millie needs to have better talent. They go to practice at Max's house again, and they go to kiss this time, and honestly it really does feel out of nowhere. It's ridiculous. And then the trope of kisses interrupt us happens, and the phone rings, and it's Millie's boyfriend out of nowhere. She's surprising her, turning up and saying, I'm sorry, I obviously never realised how talented you were, I never saw this side of you, and I want to support you. Millie gives her boyfriend a lukewarm hug, hello, after not seeing him for God knows how many months now, and gives Max googly eyes right in front of him while Max is serving dinner. But she still sleeps with her boyfriend and upsets Max, and it's just all very fine, isn't it? Do you know what? I'm just bitter. She gets to kiss and smooch two very attractive men, and I'm just here on Instagram sharing the love of my life questionnaires saying that it's salmon sashimi. It's fine. I'm just bitter, okay? I'm just bitter. Millie and Max have this weird romantic breakfast, and Millie weirdly explains in a cringy way the plot of this story, comparing it to opera. Then they go to get it on, and she stops because she's like, I'm not a cheater if we don't have sex, am I? No, you're a cheater. You are a cheater. You have cheated. Unless you and your boyfriend previously stated you don't care if you mac out with other people, then you've cheated. You've crossed a boundary of trust, and you've kind of spoken to him disrespectfully behind his back multiple times. I just... I hate her. She then leaves and then says to Max, we need to keep our distance forever, and they do for a big chunk of the film. I think this was meant to be the montage, and it just shows them singing in different situations, warming up for the competition. Then the performance happens, and this is where something happens that really annoys me. So throughout the film, the whole plot situation or location is the Scottish Highlands, which have very, very rural places. They really do, and that wasn't something that bothered me. It was quaint, it was nice, it was a good location to eliminate other interfering characters and also isolate them together to grow an attachment, but they didn't really utilize that location or show that location having that effect. It just made everyone seem underdeveloped in intelligence almost. All of the locals always sit in the pub and they're questioning her like she's some outsider, like they've never seen anyone outside the village before. It was almost insulting. And then at this competition, they're sitting there in the pub listening to the competition on the radio like it's 1943 and TV wasn't invented yet. And then a part of me thought, well, you don't know, Lucy, it might not be on television. And then I thought, it's a made-up competition that's in a film. It can be anything it wants it to be, but it wants to make this Scottish Highland town seem that rural that they don't even know what television is. Millie goes to perform, she's incredible. Max is doing the weird googly eye thing again, which is actually a trope. It's called like Window to the Soul or something, where we'll darken everything out, show the eyes, and the eyes are meant to say everything that words could. And they do it a lot. Like the first scene in the film, and then every other scene in the film. It's used too much. Too much. And then comes the bit which makes Megan's character just plummet in my eyes. It was already teetering a little bit now and again, but Millie comes off the stage, Max is waiting for her and gets down on one knee and proposes because why? Megan shows up in the background kind of eavesdropping, and a part of me thought, this was all her plan. Throughout the film, she's been giving Max advice on go away so she'll miss you, sing a duet together, stuff like that. Even though one of her 3 rules was no visitors, so why would she encourage love to distract from their singing? Why is a fly attacking me? And when the landlord, earlier on in the film, says Max won't get through or he'll be heartbroken, she says, good. Then he'll learn how to sing because everyone says he sings without emotion. It made me think Megan cared only about the opera, only about talent and only about performance, and I thought she was watching it, observing what she had done, what she had orchestrated, which was for Max to propose and Millie to reject him so he could sing with emotion. It's brutal, it's conniving, it's evil, and I loved it. But no, she just overhears, she follows Millie into the bathroom and tries to talk to her about whether or not she will marry him, and then leaves. That's it. Boring. Boring, boring, boring. Millie doesn't want to ruin the chance Max has with his performance by saying no, but then she goes to sit in the audience next to her boyfriend to watch him. Okay. Ugh. Max is overcome with emotion because of all the love he has for Millie, and performs the best he's ever performed and goes to win it. As he should, and I stand by, he's the main story. He's the main character. It's all about Max. Well done, Max. Then Millie drives back from Scotland to London in the same night. And I know it's the same night because she's wearing the same dress. And don't tell me that this competition ended at like 12 p.m. for them to get back in time. It's hours. I drove from Liverpool to Loch Ness last year and it took 7 hours for that. So that just made me laugh. And I know they were driving because it's the same car she was using in Scotland, so She gets in bed and does a little mini monologue to her boyfriend saying she realises there are no such things as fast track when it comes to opera and she's going to carry on working really hard and make it properly. Her boyfriend has no reaction because he's tired after probably driving 10 plus hours, and then she says, even though he didn't, "Did you just roll your eyes at me?" He says nothing because he's probably asleep, and then she says, "Oh fuck," like she realised she's made a mistake. Okay. They wanted in the last stage to show his true colours and how much he actually didn't support her or care. They could have done it so much better, and it's just awful. It just makes her look like a paranoid woman who just was looking for a reason to leave him, in my opinion. Because she's a terrible person. 3 years have passed and Max has made it. He's in a show, he's doing really well, but the woman he was performing with has pulled out and they're looking for someone to replace her. There's 2 choices, this other girl and Millie. Millie is very new into the scene, but she has crawled her way up. He picks her to perform with, finds out Millie's single, and they clearly fall in love while performing on the stage together, and when they kiss, it's a real kiss. I have never been so annoyed at 2 people getting together in my life. By this point, I hate Millie. I hate her, and I don't know why she's succeeding, and I just don't think she deserves it. And I get that she's worked hard and she's built her way up there, and that's meant to be her redeeming act. Like, you're meant to be like, oh, good on her, she's realised she can't hack her way through life and she's worked really hard and she deserves this now. No, don't agree, don't like her, don't know. No, I really do get that I probably am being very harsh on this film. It's easy to be negative towards something than it is to be positive, and there are stuff I genuinely liked, but at the end of the day, the best way to sum it up is I watched a film. I didn't enjoy a film. I didn't get immersed in the film. I didn't root for anyone. At most, I rooted for Max. But even still, Max annoyed and infuriated me for most of the film. There were things I like and there were things I didn't like. I'm obsessed with this new app. It's not new, but it's new to me, app called Letterboxd, and I'm trying to get good at rating films, and I think on average this got 2.5, which I'd say is fair. I'd say it's a fair rating for this film, and to me that's not great. It is not the worst film I've ever seen. It's even not the worst rom-com I've ever seen, but there are some really camp, really terrible, really vapid rom-coms which are so much more enjoyable. It could even create more depth at times and make more sense even in their campness. The tragedy that is falling for Figaro is a tragedy because there's so much that could work with this film and I wanted it to work. I want more rom-coms in my life. I feel like I've run out of rom-coms. We have Netflix which is for just films. We have Shudder, which is for horror films. I want a streaming service for rom-coms. I'd be the only one I sign up to. All I would watch is rom-coms. I am a rom-com master. So when I see new rom-coms out that look such high quality, I get excited. And unfortunately, that high quality gave me a high expectation. Maybe it wouldn't have. I don't know. I've only found one other review, one on YouTube, by a guy called Big Gold Belt Media, and he reviewed it after watching it at a festival before Netflix must have picked it up. And he did have some critique to give, as there is definitely criticism in this film to be had, but he seemed to enjoy it more than I did. So maybe that is a part of it. Maybe I've gone in with a level of expectation. I've watched The Kissing Booth, hated everything to do with it, but still enjoyed it. Maybe not 3, at least 1. I at least enjoyed 1 and 2. So I'm not saying they have to be good films. I know The Kissing Booth is a disaster of a movie, and even worse than Falling for Figaro, but there was just something so lacking in this film that made me enjoy 0 of it, and that makes me so sad. Especially a film that involved talent on the level of professional opera singing. I had so much fun watching these singers. I love watching competition-esque style films. I love the non-typical bombshell being the lead. There was so much that they could have worked with, there was so much they could have done, and there was so much potential. Yeah, maybe they just let my expectations down. I'd love you to watch this film, because like I said, there's so few reviews. I don't know whether I am isolated in this opinion or everyone else feels the same. So please, it's on Netflix. It's free to watch. If you have Netflix, go watch it and come back to me and tell me what you think if you haven't watched it yet. But if you have watched it this far, I'm assuming you have because you've just watched all the spoilers. So comment below and tell me what you think of the film, please, because it helps out the channel as well. Well, I'm gonna go because I'm in a rush, and yeah, thank you for watching. And please, if you'd like to see me review more films, comment below what film you'd like to see. I don't want to always be reviewing films that only one other person has reviewed on YouTube, because I imagine that not many people care or know about this film. So this was more for me than for anyone else. I just needed to rant. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters. Like, genuinely, thank you. Couldn't do this without you, really. And don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps out the channel. And I will see you soon. Bye!